So Algebra 1, we spent a couple of days solving systems graphically. I mean, what are the drawbacks of the method? You know, it can be inaccurate. It can be inaccurate for a number of reasons. Your graph is not precise, or it could be inaccurate because the answer is not an integer value for both x and y. So it doesn't land on a grid line, and there's some guesswork. So inaccurate, guesswork. Okay, those are things that are going on. Let's look at another way of solving. This is called solving by substitution. This is an algebraic method. So if I look at it, let's look at the first equation. Solve the first equation for y. You get y is equal to negative 2x plus 6. Now the second equation is 3x minus y equals negative 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this value of y and plug it into the second equation. So I'm going to get 3x minus, and then I know from the first equation that y is negative 2x plus 6, and that has to equal negative 1. So this is called the substitution method because I'm substituting from one equation into the other. So now if you look at it, the equation that I now have only has x's in it, one variable. So I can do this. This is 3x plus 2x minus 6 equals negative 1. This is 5x equals, add 6 to both sides, 5. Therefore, x is equal to 1. So I've got half of my answer here. X has to be 1. To get the other half, I can substitute an x equal 1 in either of the original equations. So I'm going to go back to one of the easiest ones is the one that you've already solved for y. Let's take that equation and let's write y equals negative 2. Now that I know x is 1, so then I get y equals what, negative 2 plus 6, which equals 4. So my solution is 1, 4. Or you could write x equal 1, y equal 4. Okay. Let's double check this. If x is 1 and y is 4, you get 2 plus 4 is 6. In the other one, you'll get 3 minus 4 is negative 1. So it works. Okay. So this is the method called substitution. Okay. It's an algebraic method. Okay, we don't have to graph it. It allows us to solve a system where the answer could not be an integer or a grid point. Okay, so let's look at this one. So our steps are we have to solve one of the equations for one of the variables and then plug it into the other equation. So this is where you could solve any equation for any variable. I could solve the first equation for x. I could solve the first equation for y, the second equation for x, or the second equation for y. Now, this is where I want to try to pick which is the easiest thing to do, okay? The easiest thing to do in this situation is to solve the second equation for y because there's nothing in front of the y, okay? So the easiest thing to do is to solve, and let's number these equations, number 1 and number 2. The easiest is to solve the second equation for y. Now it's going to work. You could solve the first equation for x, but you're going to have 7/5 and 27/5. You're going to have to do a lot of fraction work. You can get there, which is going to be more complicated. Easiest path, solve the second equation for y. So solve the second equation for y, you get y is negative 2x plus 10. Okay. Now I'm going to plug that into, since that's from equation 2, I've got to plug it into equation 1. So 5x plus 7, and this is where I substitute negative 2x plus 10 equals 27. So all I did is substitute that value of y, so you get what, 5x minus 14x plus 70 equals 27. So this is what, negative 9x, okay, equals 27 minus 70. 10 minus 7 is 3, negative 43. Did I do that right? Yep, so 5x plus 7, negative 2x plus 10, that's a 70. That's a 27. So that should be right. Yep, okay. So x is equal to 43 over 9. Okay. So fractions are unavoidable here. X is a fraction, okay? So now what I want to do, I need to figure out y. The easiest place to go is go to an equation that was already solved for y, and now let's figure out what y has to be. So y has to be negative 2 times 43 over 9 plus 10, okay? So this is what? Double that, you get what? Negative 86 over 9 plus, I'm going to write this as 90 over 9, right? So this is what? 4/9. So my solution is 43/9, 4/9. Now definitely that's not one that I want to solve by graphing. So this is where substitution as an algebraic method is superior. Okay, this is called fun with a word problem, okay? Let's look at this. So the exercise here is we're going to have to come up with a system of equations. So Rochelle is conducting an experiment on cells of Elodea, whatever that is, a kind of water plant. To induce plasmosis at the correct rate, she needs an 8% saline solution, but she only has the solutions on hand. So she has a 10% solution and a 5% solution, but she needs an 8% solution, okay? If she mixes the two solutions to get 1,000 milliliters of an 8% solution, which will she use more of? Okay. If I were to mix them straight up, a 10 and a 5, then when you average a 10 and a 5, you get a 7.5. So if I use the same amounts, I'm going to get a 7.5% solution. So I'm going to have to use more of which one? I'm going to have to raise the. So I'm going to have to raise the average. The average is 7.5. I'm going to have to raise the average. I'm going to have to use more of solution A in order to make that work, okay? Now let's see how we can make it work. We're going to let X equal the milliliters of A, and Y equals the milliliters of B. And we want a system of equations. So how much am I going to end up with a total? I'm going to end up with 1,000. So you know that what? X plus Y has to equal 1,000. When I add these two solutions, I have to get 1,000. Now, how much salt is in the solution A? So you know that 10%, and I'm just going to do it without decimals, okay? So if I do 10 of the first one, let me just do it with decimals, then I'll convert it. So the 10% comes from A, plus the 5% of B is going to give me the what? 8%. 8% solution, and we know it's 1,000, right? So if I go ahead and do this, I rewrite this. This could be written as 10x plus 5. Sorry, that's not a B. That should be a Y. Plus 5y is going to equal 8,000. So that's my system of equations, okay? So the easiest equation to solve is to solve one of these first ones. You know that what y equals 1,000 minus x. So I can rewrite this equation, 10x plus 5, 1,000 minus x equals 8,000. So then this is what? 10x minus 5x, I get 5x equals 5,000, excuse me, plus 5,000 equals 8,000, so 5x equals 8,000, right? So x is What did I do wrong here? Sorry, my mistake. 0.08 times 1,000 is, what is that? Oh, sorry. Sorry, my mistake on the arithmetic error here. 8,000 minus 5,000, this number right here is 3,000. So x is 600. So if x is 600, then you know that you have what, 600 milliliters of A, and you know that you're going to have 400 milliliters of B. Or you could substitute back into this equation, but that one's pretty easy to see. I could do this in one variable. So if we did this in pre-algebra last year before we did two variable equations, we could have done this in one variable, because you know that if you could say x equals the milliliters of A, and you know that you're going to have 1,000 milliliters. So last year we would have done 1,000 minus x equals the milliliters of B. So I could have just used one variable there for this. And so I could then have said like 10% of the x plus 5% of 1,000 minus x is going to equal that 8% of 1,000. So what you notice there is this equation is the same thing that I'm getting right here after I substitute in. So this one could have been done with one variable. You're going to get the same equation here, 10x plus 5, 1,000 minus x equals 8,000. So you're going to get the same equation, and then x equals 600. And then once you know 600, 1,000 minus 600 is 400. So it could have been done either way. What we're focusing on now is doing them with two variables and two equations. Solve by substitution, okay? So I want to figure out what's the easiest thing to do, okay? And this one, I don't see any variable standing by itself, okay? So if I solve the first equation for x, I'm going to be dealing with a 4/3 and a 9/3, okay? The 9/3 I'm okay with. If I solve the first equation for y, I'm going to be dealing with a 3/4 and a 9/4. If I solve the second equation for x, I'm going to be dealing with 7/2 and 12/2. If I solve the second equation for y, I'm going to be dealing with 2/7 and 12/7. So there's not a one easiest one to do, okay? Let's just say, let's solve the first equation for x. So 3x plus 4y equals 9. Okay, if I say 3x equals negative 4y plus 9, divide everything by 3. So x equals negative 4/3 y plus 3. Okay, so that's my value for x. I'm going to need to substitute that into the second equation. So 2 times negative 4/3 y plus 3 plus 7y equals 12. So this one, fraction's unavoidable, okay? So what do I get? Negative 8/3 y plus 6 plus 7y equals 12. I can move that 6 to the other side, right? And I can write this as what? Negative 8/3 y plus 21/3 y equals 6. Then 21 minus 8, so that's what, 13/3 y. 13/3 y equals 6. Therefore, y is equal to 6. Dividing by 13/3 is the same as multiplying by 3 over 13. So y is equal to, what is this, 18 over 13. The other thing you could have done when you got to this spot right here, I could multiply everything by 3. Negative 8y plus 21y equals what, 18? So negative 13y equals 18. Y is, and let's see if I missed a minus sign somewhere. No, this is a positive 13. So y is equal to 18 over 13. So your solution here is, oh, that's just half of it. So I've got y. So y is 18 over 13. Now I need to go find x. Go back to our original equation that I solved for x. X is going to be negative 4/3 times 18 over 13 plus 3. Unfortunately, nothing cancels there. So this is what, negative 72 over 39 plus 3. So negative 72 over 39 plus, so 3 times 39 is 117 over 39. So 117 minus 72, 45. So this is what, 45 over 39. Divide those by 3, 15 over 13. So that's your x value. So x is equal to 15 over 13. Y is equal to 18 over 13. So a little bit of involved, but that is our solution there. Looking at the next one, a vacation resort offers surfing and parasailing. If Camilla takes a surfing lesson and goes parasailing, she will pay a total of $175. On Friday, the resort collects a total of $31.01 for activities. How much does each activity cost? And be sure to look at the little info. 16 people went parasailing and 20 people took surfing lessons. So just set up our variables. If x equals the cost of, what are the two things, surfing, and y equals the cost of parasailing, can I come up with two equations? We know that Camilla took one lesson of each. So Camilla took one surfing and one parasailing, and she paid what? $175. Then the resort had 16 people they had 20. 20 people took surfing and 16 people took parasailing, and that was $31.01. Now in this one, it is very obvious which equation and what to solve for. You want to solve the first equation for either one of those variables. Doesn't matter. So y is going to be equal to 175 minus x, and I'm going to plug that into this equation. So I'm going to get 20x plus 16, 175 minus x equals 31.01. Okay. So 20x plus 16 times 175 is 2,800. 2,800 minus 16x is 31.01. So I get 4x equals 301. Is that right? 3101. Let's double check that. 3101 minus 2,800. Okay, so x is equal to 3101 divided by 4, so 301. So I get 75.25. Now, so that means that there were what? 75.25 lessons of surfing, okay? So I really can't do that, okay? So I know that there are, so I would say I can't do a quarter lesson. So I know that there are approximately 75 lessons of surf, okay? And then that would mean then approximately, so around 100 lessons of parasailing. Now this is an example where the solution, it does have an exact solution. It does involve decimals, but that doesn't fit in the context of this word problem, okay? So I would not want to say there were 75 and a quarter lessons unless I said, lessons were a certain amount per hour and you could have partial hours. So anyway, that would be sufficient for this particular problem, okay? And let's look at a couple. Solve by substitution. So, and again, I have to figure out which equation is the easiest to solve for which variable, okay? So if I look at the first one, if I solve for x, I'm going to have a 5/4 and a 12/4. Solve for y, I'm going to have a 4/5 and a 12/5. In the next one, solve for y, you're going to have a 12/15 and a 36/15. Solve for x, 36/12, 15/12. So I'm going to have fractions, whatever I do here, okay? Let's just look at the first one. Let's just say I'll just pick one and say let's solve for x. 4x, and I'm picking this one because the numbers are smaller. Okay. Equals 5y plus 12. X equals 5/4 y plus 3. So I'm going to substitute that into the second equation. 15y equals 12. 5/4 y plus 3 minus 36. So 15y equals, this is going to be what? 15y plus 36 minus 36. So 15y equals 15y. Okay. So what am I seeing here? If I subtract 15y from both sides, I get 0 equals 0. So if I look and see what's going on here, that means that I have infinitely many solutions. I could see that if I write it this way, 4x minus 5y equals 12, and then negative 12x plus 15y equals negative 36. Negative what, 12x. So it looks like to get from this equation to this equation, if you multiply by negative 3 every time, it works. So one equation is a multiple of the other. So this one means there are infinitely many solutions. If I look at the next one, I got fractions off the bat. Okay, there's a way not to deal with those. I can multiply by the common denominator, which is 6. And so what do I get? I get 4x plus y equals 24. The next equation is 4x plus y equals 8. Okay. These are two equations that are going to have the same slope. Just look at it. Y is equal to negative 4x plus 24. Y is equal to negative 4x plus 8. These are equations that have the same slope but different y-intercepts, which means they're parallel, they never intersect. This has no solution. Now, if you were to not see that from here, what you could do is I could solve the first equation. So here's my, if I look at this, I could solve this equation, y is equal to 8 minus 4x, and plug it into here. So 4x plus 8 minus 4x equals 24. 8 equals 24. No solution. Okay. X plus 2y equals 7. Solve the first equation for x. X equals 7 minus 2y. Plug that into the next equation. 4 7 minus 2y plus 6y equals 12. So 28 minus 8y plus 6y equals 12. Negative 2y equals negative 16. So y is equal to 8. If y is 8, or just go back to this one, if y is 8, x equals 7 minus 2 times 8, 7 minus 16. So x is equal to negative 9. And this one, easiest thing to do, first equation, x equals y plus 15. We're going to substitute that into the second equation. 2 times y plus 15 minus 3y equals 17. So 2y plus 30 minus 3y equals 17. Minus y equals minus 13. So y is 13. That's half of my answer. Go back up to here. X is equal to 13 plus 15, so x is 28. So your answer can be, I found x and I found y and I circled them, or you could say the answer is the point 28, 13. Either way denotes the answer for me, okay? And that should lead you up into homework for this particular section.